In this video, we're going to cover alternate position views shown in drawings, and we're going to tell you what happens when it doesn't work and why it doesn't work. You're going to hate this example, but if this happens to you, I want you to know what SolidWorks is doing and what we can do to trick it back into submission. Okay, so you've created your camera iris and you're very happy with it. It looks great. It will open, it will close, and you say, gosh, this is great, Adam. Look, it opens, it closes. I showed my kids, I showed my mom, everyone's super impressed. However, if I take it past the extent it wants to do crazy spiral flower circle-y things and then come back together, and that's just not okay. And I say, well, technically it's okay because you control the mouse. And if you control the mouse, then you know that, hey, we need to stop somewhere around here and we need to stop somewhere around here. But if you'd have trouble stopping, then there are tools in SolidWorks that you can force it one way or the other. So we're just going to use mates. There's no trickery going on here. We're just going to make a mate between two surfaces or two planes on my models. And the first one might be closed. So we created a mate, and I'm going to unsuppress that, and it closes it, and it is fixed. It's stuck, it's closed, it's not going to open. And you say, that's great, Adam, but what if I wanted to show it open? So we'll suppress that one and unsuppress the open mate, and it forces it open, and it stays open, and it will not close. So that's great, but you say, God, I worked so hard to get that fancy motion, and I really want it to add motion. So we say, fine, suppress that mate, and we can use a limit angle mate. Now you can Google the limit angle mate or look for videos, which should be pretty easy to find in SolidWorks or in my lectures. So we'll unsuppress the angle mate, and limit angle mate is going to stop at certain limits. So here is our closing limit, and even if I move my mouse past that position, it automatically stops. The open limit is the same way. If I move the mouse past the limit, it still stops. And this is a great way to show people how your mechanism works if you're a little sloppy with the mouse. So to summarize, I had a limit angle, I had a closed, and I had an open. On all of these are standard mates that I just suppress or unsuppress to get them to do certain things. Let's save this because life is good. Let's check our configurations. We only have a default configuration, but we will be talking about configurations and we will be talking about mates in some future steps. So just understand that the mates are going to force the model to do certain things, and the configurations are going to allow me to call those at different times in the drawing. So let's create our drawing. File, make drawing from part. I've done this a couple times, so I probably have a drawing, but we'll just start a new one anyway. Let's bring in a view. That's a little bit crowded, so let me change the scale. We're going to use a user-defined scale, 1.5 to 1 or 3 to 2, depending on how you read that fraction. Here is our closed state, and I do want to show that if we tile both windows, when we change the assembly, the drawing will follow. If I move it to halfway, the drawing will follow. So now let's talk about how can we get our drawing to show both open and closed states, just to show kind of what this does. And there is a drafting tool called alternate position, and that alternate position drafting tool allows me to show things in two different states. And here's an example of a robot gripper claw thing. The closed state is the natural state. So for this robot gripper thing, we've got a closed state, and you can see that those are all solid black lines. So that's at rest, or that's where it wants to be. The alternate position, or open state, is shown as phantom lines. So obviously this robot gripper opens, and that open state can be shown as phantom lines. We call that an alternate position. Now SolidWorks has an alternate position, but it must be called from the drawing. So since it's an alternate position view, this is definitely a thing that we want to invoke from the drawing. So what I would suggest is you go to your assembly and you get your assembly in its natural state. So here's our natural state. This is where we want to be. Eventually we'll show it closed, but we want to start out open. Next, from the drawing, we're going to use our S key for search or shortcut, and we're going to search for alternate position. We call the tool, and if we have not pre-selected a view, SolidWorks says, hey, select a view. So we do. And then it says we can create a new configuration or pull an existing configuration. So if you already created a configuration with everything set the way you want it, just say that we'd like to call that one and pull it in. In this case, we haven't created any additional configurations. We only had the default configuration, so we'd like it to create a new one for us. And we're going to say that this is the new Alt Position View. And then we can say that it is closed. All right, so this is the new alternate position view, and it will be closed, and we'll click the green check. SolidWorks takes us to the assembly, and it puts us in the move component state and sets it to free drag. So we can just free drag this, but I found that you do actually need to click on the model first. So we'll click on the model, something usually highlights, and then we can just drag this into the position we want it to go. And we click go. SolidWorks returns us to the drawing, and you're going to say, Adam, it didn't do anything. And I know this is where this little dynamic assembly thing causes a problem sometimes. You're going to see at the end that this is kind of obvious why when we get there, but we're going to have to walk down the trail to get there. So let's do this. Let's go to the assembly and look at our configurations. And we see that SolidWorks did actually create the new alternate position view closed. And if I double click on that, you'll see that it is sitting right on top of the existing configuration. In other words, the default configuration, well, the drawing is showing that. That's the default configuration. And the alternate position view, well, it's showing that too. So these are just superimposed one over the other. It's there, you just can't see it. All right, so let's go back to the assembly and let's go to default and let's just move it. Great, life is good. Let's go back to alternate position view and we say like, oh God, it doesn't work. Okay, that's fine. Because they're both superimposed. We need a way to get a configuration into its closed state. So one thing that we can do is adjust the mates. So let's do this. In the default configuration, we'll leave it open. And in the new alternate position view closed, we're going to go back to the feature manager. We'll come down here to mates, and I want to unsuppress the closed mate. Now, I'm going to save this just because it's a good idea to save every once in a while. Let's go back to the configuration and show the default also is closed. So what's going on there? Well, maybe the default configuration should be open. Okay, let's see. Closed, open. Uh-oh. What in the world? It flipped. So that mate flipped on us. That's not good. That's going to suck. All right, if this happens, then we just go in. This is the open configuration. So we go to our mates, open through a fit here. Let's suppress this one. Let's edit this one. And let's just see if I can reverse. I've got two planes selected. They're perpendicular. Maybe we just set them at an angle. All right, so I've set the angle to 270 degrees instead of to 90 degrees. So a little oversight there, sorry. All right, let's go back to closed, open. Got it. When we go back to the drawing view, it is faint, but I think you can see it, that we now have the popsicle stick phantomed in the closed position, and the little crescent pieces are phantomed in. The natural state is open. So now we can simply add a dimension from the popsicle stick to the popsicle stick. And that's how we would show alternate position view and just how some of the crazy things about these dynamic assemblies work.